If I'm at work and somebody puts their hands on a part of my body that is a very private part, that's harassment. I don't care how well I know you. We're at work, that's inappropriate. I shouldn't have to state that. Now, if it's somebody that I've known since I was a baby and you come up and you give me a hug and you call me by some nickname, that won't bother me as much if I know you very well, because I know you well and I know that your intention behind your words is not to harass me. It comes from a place of love and a place of comfort. And I also know that, like, if I'm having a bad day and somebody that I know well tries to, like, give me a hug and I tell them, like, no, go fuck yourself, I don't feel like being touched right now, that they'll also respect that.
Mm-hmm. Could you put a, like, sort of a, I don't know, a ballpark percentage of, like, do you feel that most men are abusive or callous, or what fraction? I mean, would you say there's more good guys than bad guys?
That's a hard thing to pinpoint, for sure.
Time out.
What's going on?
What's going on? You need to come in? No.
Robin, if you need to come through, come through.
Yeah, just shut the door. Cool.
I got a chair up.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing awesome.
Thanks.
This is all very good,
I'm very
usable
nasally
stuff.
because of my cold.
That's all right.
I'm trying not to cough on the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Nobody's licking it, so it's fine.
would you say,
Don't flick the microphone.
Yeah.
what do you think about substance and alcohol abuse in the industry? Have you had any problems? Have you witnessed other people having problems?
I've definitely witnessed other people having problems with that because of the manic nature of our job. It's something that can happen really easily, especially because our industry can be very intense. Like when you're at work, there's a lot of feelings and there's a lot of emotions, and you're doing manual labor and you're picking things up, and like afterwards you want to decompress. And you definitely want to decompress if you're working like overnight kind of things and you go home and there's like people at home who are sleeping. You don't want to walk in and be like, ah! So a lot of people will go to the bar or will partake in some sort of other substance after work to help themselves decompress. And that can be helpful, self-medicating, but it can also be a slippery slope. Part of it, I think, is as much in any, just is more about human nature. You know, some people are just more predetermined towards addiction. I think that our industry used to have a lot more open drug and alcohol use everywhere, especially old like rock and roll tours or old like all night kind of working gigs. Like people just did that and nobody ever really said anything about it. I think people are talking about it more. Yeah.
Okay. When someone outside of the industry asks you what you do, what do you tell them, and do you think they actually understand?
When somebody outside of the industry asks me what I do, I usually tell them that I'm a stagehand. And depending on their level of interaction with that kind of world, and depending on how I feel that day, I guess, I will go in depth more about explaining it. Sometimes I'm like, I point lights at people and I make them look pretty. Like basic end of the job. Like I plug something in, if you hit the button and the light comes on, I've done my job. Like that's what I do, very basic of it. But sometimes it's more fun, you know, like I work backstage setting up shows, try and explain different venues. Depends on what I'm working on too. Definitely, like if I'm working on a corporate gig, like I'm working on a meeting. Like I'm making corporate people look pretty, so they can
A lot of
feel good
people,
about themselves.
I'm sorry, I did interrupt you.
No, no.
A lot of people have talked about, you know, I'm going to say civilians, really have no idea of what we do. You know, when they walk into a venue, maybe for a rock show, they really don't grok that it came off the truck that morning, is going back on the truck that night, and is trucking to the next venue. Can you talk about that a little bit? Do you think the general public, I'm not phrasing this right.
Do you think that a commoner at the bar would understand the extent of what you do?
Mere mortal people.
Yeah.
I think that San Francisco is, again, like a little enigma here because we are such a union-strong town. A lot of the unions overlap with each other, and you find them at all the bars. So those people have a better idea about what you do, other brothers and sisters in other unions, because we kind of overlap in the convention center and other venues. Like the general public, no. Like, and I have people that I've completely explained what I do to them multiple times. I've even like shown them videos, like, hey, look, here's like a time lapse of setting up a show and tearing it down, and like, look, like that's me, like in the time lapse doing things. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm climbing a ladder, I'm hanging a light. like, why would you do it like that? Which is always a fun question to be asked by somebody who has no idea what you're doing.
It's a mayonnaise commercial. Yeah. All right.
Oh, can I ask you, why did you choose to work in entertainment?
Why did I choose to work in entertainment? I don't know if I chose to work in entertainment as much as it chose me. It was something to do when I was 18. I was in college. It was a great way to make money and save so I could work winters and summers and then have more time off during the school year to work or to just do school. And then when I graduated, I kind of just did it for health insurance, and then I got hired at the opera and I was there for 6 years. So I just kind of got sucked in. A large reason I started touring is because I wanted to do entertainment-based performance-based work as opposed to doing meetings and conventions and things. There's something very beautiful for me in the way that people interact with art. And it doesn't have to be like fine art or something beautiful. It can be. It can be like opera or ballet or some sort of very antiquated, beautiful kind of what people used to determine as fine art. But it could also just be like kids doing like something silly that like a little kid like ballet show that they do at their school that I help them set up lights for. I want to do performance-based work because in that audience there's somebody having a visceral, cathartic reaction to what's been going on in front of them, and you may change somebody's life. Like, even if you only reach one person every day, it makes it easier to get through the bad times if you can remember that there's somebody in the audience who's having a reaction to what you're helping to create. Because it takes a village. It's not just the stagehands, it's not just the actors, it's not just the stage managers. You all have to work together. But in that kind of performance-based art, there's always somebody in the audience that's seeing this for the very first time, who's never been to a show, who's never seen, people that had the lights come down and seen like people on a stage doing what they're doing, and that's a beautiful thing to me. It makes me happy.
Do you still get a thrill every time the curtain goes up? I do.
Every time?
Pretty much.
I do. I get a thrill most of the time. One of my coworkers a long time ago told me that you have to find one part of every show that you like that happens when you don't have a cue, so that you have a moment to connect with in every show. Find one thing, and it can be something small. It can be like the way the lights changed in that cue, or it can be like a tiny pirouette that one of the ballet dancers does, or a scene shift that's just very orchestrated in ballet and gorgeous, in the way that it flows so beautifully. You find one thing that you like and you hold on to that thing when things get bad, but also you appreciate it every night. You take the moment to actually stop and not be so jaded and maybe try to enjoy what you're doing.
So at lunch today, we had some discussions and talks, and I was asked some questions about, the subject was raised about women being marginalized in